Hello, welcome back. It is Premier League time once again. The Premier League preview returns every single Friday at a new time at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Do get into the comments if you like that time. We're going to be talking lots of things. Football, of course, mentioning Manchester United's new three players, Hojlund, Mason Mount, Andre Onana, what that will bring to the football club. Will it close the gap to Manchester City and Arsenal? I think so. I also think Man United can win the Premier League. I think the Premier League is going to be very, very tight this season. There are some good teams at the top of the league. But welcome everyone back. Let's get this party started. Right, Johnny, that's exactly where we need to start. On today's show, we're going to be focusing on a few games. We're going to be talking about Arsenal. We're going to be talking FPL, of course. But in terms of the major games we're going to be looking at in real detail, we're going to be talking about Newcastle's game with Aston Villa on Saturday at 5:30. That could be an absolute corker. For me, Villa are one of the most underrated teams in the Premier League right now. I genuinely think they could finish 6th, 5th in the league. Get into the comments and let me know. Then we'll be diving into a little bit of action between Chelsea and Liverpool, or the Caicedo derby, as we will be calling it. Of course, talking about the Caicedo transfer as well. And then finishing off the weekend's fun with Monday Night Football, Manchester United versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. All that good stuff. But first and foremost, everyone doing all right? Everyone doing okay? It's been a long time. I've been to Berlin. I've got myself a mullet. I've come back. A new man. New energy. Great break. How was all your breaks as well? Do you enjoy there being no international football in the men's game? Anyone watching the Women's World Cup as well? I've seen a few games, listened to a few games on the radio. All good stuff. Right, so we may as well start with the first topic of conversation. That is the title race. The title this season for me is going to be very, very close between 3-4 sides, maybe. I think one of the biggest things that we've got from last season, there was a gap between Arsenal, City and the rest of the league in terms of quality. The way that those two played football, opened teams up, had great variation in their build-up, in their passing, in their attacking, but also the forward lineup. We talk about Hojlund as that fixed point for Manchester City, but the rotation around him was absolutely fantastic. City, of course, won the league back end of the season. Some really, really good performances. Champions League final, in the Manchester Derby FA Cup final, but also the Real Madrid game at home. I say this is the performance of their season. What a game that was. Bernardo Silva, absolutely ruthless on the right wing. City, of course, in terms of signings and transfers, haven't made many. At the moment, we've just got the likes of Gvardiol and Mateo Kovacic coming into the side. Gundogan leaving for Barcelona and Mahrez for Saudi Arabia. I'd argue that they've got a little weaker. I think they've got weaker. I think they've lost a very, very important goal-scoring midfielder. We talk about the importance of Ilkay Gundogan in the back end of the season for Manchester City, and I think one of the big things with him as a footballer is he has that real capability to score goals. If we actually look at his running, we've got braces, we've got assists. Got 6 goals in the last 7 games. When you really need a player to come up clutch, Gundogan was City's guy last season. He is gone. Mahrez, gone. Variation on the flanks, gone. And you look at Arsenal's squad, and that has got a lot better. Kai Havertz, who I think is a bit of a gamble signing, but I do think it's a good gamble. I think when you're looking at them bringing Declan Rice into the football club, that's an absolute masterstroke. There's so many examples of Declan Rice being a top footballer from last season. The way that he plays in that central area, the leadership that he shows, the coaching to the other players. It's there's a real level of a player that's kind of top pro and will improve Arsenal. Arsenal's transfer business has been pretty good. You look at that, you look at Kai Havertz, who's a slight gamble, and then Yuri and Timber, that's a tap-in signing in a sense. One of the best ball-playing centre-halves in the world, is capable of playing all across the back line, and that really improves Arsenal's squad in a defensive sense, especially. I think they dropped out that title race last season because of the injury to William Saliba. If that happens this year, they'll be absolutely fine with Yuri and Timber. Of course, Kivor's got more experience, but Timber is just another level. The way that he presses, the way that he harries, the way that he wins the ball back, and then in possession. He's ranked in the top 1% of defenders in Europe for passing to the final third, passes completed. This guy is brilliant in the ball. In terms of fantasy, we will be talking about that, Macca, don't you worry. I was trying to get a video out this week on this channel about fantasy football, but unfortunately, things happen in life. So we'll talk about that today. We're going to go through my team. We're going to do the Newcastle Villa game. Then we'll talk fantasy football after, of course. Talk a little bit about Championship and winners of the league. Jurrien Timber, fantastic signing for Arsenal. I think that's, upgrading them. Of course, David Reyes joining as well. I was actually on a show with Peter Schmeichel, Chris Sutton, Kelly Cates, Adam Crafton on the BBC on Wednesday. We did a big Premier League preview on that. Great little show if you want to go and check it out. Still available on BBC Sounds. But one of the big things that Schmeichel was saying, Peter was saying, was basically he did not like the fact that Arsenal have got Ramsdale. He's their undisputed number one, and now they've signed David Raya, who will compete with him for the number one spot. He said that there's a big thing with goalkeepers in terms of confidence and the manager having the backing of the goalkeeper. So it's an interesting one. Guys, get into the comments. Do you think it's smart to have two top quality goalkeepers, or are you with one of the greatest goalkeepers ever Manchester United ever had, Peter Schmeichel, and you have a number one, undisputed number one, and you rotate around that with youth or experience? Let me know in the comments, guys. Moving to, of course, Manchester United. They had a lot of work to do in the summer. The big part of that work's probably clearing players out, really. Let's be honest. The squad's been bloated for a long time, with Harry Maguire, set to join West Ham United, Fred joining Fenerbahce, amongst other players that have left the football club. United squad looks a lot thinner. Donny van de Beek is expected to join Real Sociedad as well. United have done well to kind of get rid of a lot of their almost, players that have been around a bit too long. I don't want to use the term deadwood, but at the same time, there's players there that I feel have overstayed their welcome. Eric Bailly as well as another prime candidate that will be leaving Manchester United, which is exciting because then we can start to see, what United are doing with their squad and how they're evolving. Clayton with a great point in the chat. Just look at Manchester United with Dean Henderson and David De Gea. Again, that was a big, weird part of our season. Raya will be Arsenal's new number one from Anthony. Macca's saying need to be ruthless at the top. Dean is saying Liverpool and Klopp in the mud. Of course, that's after the Caicedo news that we spoke about today. We'll talk about that when we talk about Liverpool versus Chelsea as well. But also kind of building out the idea of a goalkeeper being so important. Andre Onana is an incredible signing. He's an absolutely incredible signing. One keeper, there was probably two or three keepers I would have bought in European football. Mike Mignon from AC Milan, Andre Onana would be the top two. David Raya, I think, is a very good goalkeeper. I think Arsenal getting a great goalkeeper. I would take him as United's number one. But Andre Onana, due to the fact that he's played under Erik ten Hag, arguably perfect. And of course, the memes going around of him getting lobbed from the halfway line, I really couldn't care less. I think that starting position has to be high, allows United to play properly in terms of their pressing style and their aggression, but also as a ball-playing option. But the thing, him being in possession, he completed 45 passes against Lyon in the friendly. And I think one of the big things with that and evolving Manchester United's play, it's going to improve United tenfold. And that's the kind of interesting side when you look at, David De Gea, for example, and how he was, on the ball and he'd play risky passes. The amount of times we had mistakes leading to goals with David De Gea was too much for a modern-day goalkeeper, ball at his feet. They think about the final, FA Cup final. We think about, games where they have to negate David De Gea and basically play long ball football because David De Gea can't play out from the back. And that is a problem, a serious problem. And when you look at those statistics, so in terms of passes, David De Gea didn't complete 45 passes in a single game last season once. So that's where Andre Onana's at with United. I think that's the biggest upgrade. Look at that heat map as well. He's basically playing as a libero. Absolutely love to see it. Jabak in the chat, 3 signings we've made are solid first-team players, but I don't think they'll take us to the next level. We're a top 3 team last year, probably be thereabouts this season. Don't see us climbing. That's a fair point. I do see us climbing. I'm backing the boys this season, you know what I mean? I'm flying. And Din in the chat reminding us that all Lyon are a very, very good football team. I can't wait to watch them in the Champions League this season. Second in Liga, 1 point behind PSG, which is pretty incredible. Mahad, Onana got so much slate in pre-season for nothing he could do. But the same people are slating David De Gea for not being modern, unreal. Look, you got to take it. Andre Onana will cost us goals this season with some of his passing. I don't care. I am really not bothered about that. The impact of the value of him on the ball from a expected goals position. Man United's expected goals will be better next season because they've got a player that can play out from the back. But guys, keep getting your thoughts into the chat. Who do you think is going to win the Premier League? I think on top of that, Mason Mount. I feel there's a little bit more for Mason Mount to do. I think we'll talk about him when we talk Wolves. later on. I think there's a little positional change maybe needed for him as well. Opinions on Kevin Danso. Absolutely love Kevin Danso. I think he's become a really top defender. Of course, was at Southampton in the Premier League, now playing for Lens in Ligue 1. Whenever I watch Lens, or whenever I watched them last season, he was, a real top commanding centre-half, carrying the ball out of defence. And I think Southampton have got a really good eye for centre-backs, to be fair. You think of Salisu, you think of Danso, and the other young lad that is slipping my mind, the German guy, the German centre-back. Get into the chat quickly. Before I find this out, guys, get into the chat. Bella Kotchap. There we go. Sorry. Beat you to it, guys. Beat you to it. But I think that they've got a great eye for centre-backs. Southampton, Danso's another quality one. But let's get into the Premier League action. Let's do this. It's back. How excited are we? Premier League's back tonight. They've got Burnley Man City tonight. Erling Haaland's going to score another 5,000 goals this season. Hopefully Alan Shearer's record will still be intact by the end of the season, but you never know. 260 Premier League goals. Haaland's on 36. Could he have a 225 goal season? We never know. This guy is crazy. Man City will continue to be good. I like the signings that they've made. I think they are slightly weakened, but I do think Gvardiol is a brilliant footballer, very, very good footballer. And then with Haaland, the team is almost cheating. I do think Burnley will be a surprise package this season. If you want to find out my thoughts on Burnley, go on to the main channel, Premier League predictions, a little plug for that. We do talk about Burnley and why they're going to be dark horses. The football they play is beautiful. Like, it's good football, which I do like. A guarded viewer, Onana passed out the back, found Maino from far away, who released Bruno. Really good bit. Is Todibo really that good? I think he's very good 1v1. Brilliant 1v1 defender. And I like what I've seen so far. I'm going to have a video next week out on him. And Pavard and who United should pick up. We'll definitely get that one done. Haaland is only going to score 15 goals this season. That's a hot take, Clayton. You're a madman. He only scored 15 goals if he gets injured, but fingers crossed, you know what I mean? Shout out to Mahad in the chat as well, Bella Kotchap getting involved. But I do think City will start the season in good form. But talking about the second best team in 2023 in the Premier League, it's Aston Villa. They are the second best team behind Manchester City this year. And the way that they've grown as a football side under Emery has been absolutely fantastic. And I think when you look at an Emery side and they have certain characteristics and certain behaviours in there. And I do think when we're looking at Villa now and how they play and how they move, they do very much look like an Emery side. I think the way that he uses his midfield, but also uses defence, is kind of like a little bit asymmetrical, a little bit 4-3-3 in that manner. And I do think they're just going to get better and better. I like the flexibility they've got within their side and how it kind of all really comes together, as a team. You're looking at the way that they evolve, the way that they build up from the back. It's really, really good. Right, let me just get this together. What we got here? So we got a little Douglas Luiz, John McGinn, Leon Bailey, and of course Moussa Diaby, who is going to be an absolute bagsman in the Premier League. Has Diaby been given a squad number yet, chat? Do we know what Diaby's number is at Aston Villa? Because again, we don't want to get these things wrong. But Moussa Diaby, I think, is going to be absolutely outstanding. He's a footballer that I really like. He's been at the kind of the plethora of playing for a really top side for quite a while now. And I think, this Aston Villa team is arguably perfect for him. And this is Aston Villa without their key guy in Jacob Ramsey. Jacob Ramsey was so good for them, last season in the Premier League. He was absolutely brilliant when it came to tackling, creating, getting on the ball. When you look at kind of him and you combine that with how Villa will set up in there, I think one of the big almost losses of the season is, them losing Bundia out with a knee ligament damage. You missed the news yesterday. That was the news there. So it's kind of Villa are going to have to cope with that. I think he was a really good string in their bow, but I think we'll see a slightly different Aston Villa in a sense. So let's talk tactics here. Of course, Villa defending kind of in that 4-4-2 shape, defending, at a level where I really, really start to enjoy the defensive stuff, the stuff that's doing off the ball, the stuff that's kind of in that those sort of deeper areas and so forth. Let's flip it over to the tactical side of things. Have a little chat, guys. Get your thoughts into the comments as well about Villa. So Villa 4-4-2 in a defensive sense. Diaby will play as the forward with Watkins. Leon Bailey, I expect, probably will play a little bit more left now, given the injury to Bundia. Be interested to see whether Philip Coutinho comes back into the mix. Of course, he's getting kind of pushed out at the moment with move to Saudi Arabia, which could see him move there. But again, I think the big thing with Villa and what I like about them in terms of their style and setup, it's very Emery-esque in a sense of what we see with the build-up. It kind of evolves left and right, where we always have the two forwards. We'll have one of the wide midfielders move into number 10, one of the other wide midfielder move to wing position, one of the fullbacks fly through, and then create a kind of back three out of the back. And that is without talking about Pau Torres, who been signed from Villarreal. I think Pau Torres is just a little bit below what I'd require at the top level. I think Pau Torres is probably maybe not quick enough and not agile enough on the ball for a top Premier League team. I'm talking like playing for a Manchester City, let's say, like top. And there's no disrespect to Pau Torres. I think he'll be brilliant for Villa. I think Villa is a really good level for him. I think he could do a job at a lot of other teams as well, but Villa have stepped in and got him. Not on top of that, they got Yuri Tielemans in the side. But I think with Pau Torres in the midfield, in the defence, you create this back three in possession, and Villa have got this super good attacking structure where they've got pace out wide, they've got overlaps and width from the wide areas. They've got someone in number 10, John McGinn, that can really get involved in the ball, that can tuck inside from those wide areas. And this will cause a lot of teams problems. This is a really good tactical setup. It's similar to his Villarreal team. And that's without talking about their other signing. Diaby, of course, 22 goals in the Bundesliga, 20 assists in the last 2 seasons, which is great statistics. But also, they brought in Yuri Tielemans, which out of nowhere, Yuri Tielemans was almost like, where's he going to go? Where's his home going to be? A lot of teams were looking at him. A lot of teams were trying to, build him out as the player to get into their midfield and really make something happen there. But I do think, look, Villa have got a great player in there. They really do. Guys, get into the chat. Let me know about that. Pau Torres is a budget Lindelof. I do like Pau Torres. United wanted Pau Torres, said by Simon Mahad. Bayern wanted Pau Torres as well. Watkins or Diaby for FPL. We're going to be talking FPL very, very soon. Ramsey might get sold, so it's Aaron Ramsey that's getting sold from Aston Villa. Really good young player. If I was Villa, I wouldn't be selling him, but they're apparently going to sell him. So Jacob's staying. Jacob's injured at the moment. But then you think throwing Jacob into this 11 means that they can be even more flexible. So instead of it being John McGinn, who's the player that's coming on the inside, so Matty Cash drops out the side in this element. So we'll bring in, let's say, Luka Dean. Pau Torres moves to a left-sided centre-back position. Ezri Konsa moves over. And again, Villa are set. Same thing. 4-4-2 in defence. Wide player comes inside to play make, opens up the flank for the wing back. One player stays wide in Leon Bailey. Good back four, good midfield base. Of course, Yuri Tielemans can come into that midfield base. I think that's what I like about Villa, is there's that quality of attacking both sides that we can have. With Digne as the fullback, Ramsey goes inside. With Cash as the fullback, John McGinn goes inside. It looks good. It looks really, really good. This is a stream, by the way, so do get into the chat, get into the comments, let me know what your thoughts of all this madness. So let's move on to Newcastle United. They're facing Aston Villa in the Premier League game at 5:30. They have slowly kind of pushed their team up another gear. I do like the signings. My concern with them, though, which I said on the Premier League prediction, I don't think they've done enough. I don't think they've got enough bodies in the squad. If they get an injury hit midfield, for example, let's say Sandro Tonelli and Bruno Guimaraes are out injured, which is very unlucky, the quality really drops off. And when you're thinking they've got to play this season, Champions League, Premier League, Champions League, Premier League, for the start of the season and from February onwards if they want to progress, I just think the squad might not be big enough. When we're talking about that, we're looking at the depth of it. So the forward line, we've got 2 forwards, Isak and Wilson. Of course, Isak can play wide. Wide right, you got Almiron Gordon, Jacob Murphy and Harvey Barnes, of course. I think is a very smart addition. I think the interesting thing with Harvey Barnes is he actually outscored Miguel Almiron last season. Everyone was raving about Almiron last season, but Barnes scored 2 more goals than him with 13 in the Premier League for a pretty poor Villa team. He works super hard. He's good off the ball. He's basically kind of that inside forward that I think will add goals to the Newcastle team that they really don't have. I like the signing. I just don't know if they've done enough. Livramento is a little bit of a gamble for £40 million. You know, we know the quality of Livramento. Could play central midfield, wide left, wide right. You know, left back, right back, centre back probably. But injury, big injury. We saw Wesley Fofana knee blow up again. We've seen Nkunku's knee blow up again. I would just be worried about knees blowing up, is all I'm going to say. Who starts? Isaac or Wilson? I think it'll be last season where they'll be rotated around. You look at the likes of Callum Wilson's run at the back end of the season was absolutely devastating. 18 Premier League goals, the most of any Newcastle player since Alan Shearer in the 2003-2004 season. Newcastle scored 68 goals in the league, the most the club scored since 2001-2002 season, where they managed 73. They had 3 players that scored 10 goals or more: Isaac, Wilson, and Almiron. Newcastle, Arsenal, the only team with more goal scorers. Very, very nice. Mahad in the chat, they need a left back, another midfielder, McTominay please, a centre back and a left-footed right winger. I think that would be not a bad sort of place to go. Obviously the issue with Newcastle is FFP is going to be on them. You know, they've got a lot of money in, but they can't break the rules. I think when we look at Newcastle's performances in pre-season, they have been very, very good. Hojlund scored an absolute banger against Villarreal. Hojlund's just like the level of improvement from last year was beautiful, wasn't it, guys? It was just a lovely, lovely place to go. A guarded viewer, Barnes as a replacement for Maxima makes sense. Maxima, all the dribbling, no finishing. Yeah, I think it's a great signing. So Maxima, I think his time had come. I think we realise what he is as a player. He's a very flashy player, can take people on, but the end product is not there. So Newcastle were good to get the cash in there. Shout out to BH Vitali in the chat. Issue with Newcastle is the new one manager rule on the touchline, of course. Yeah, that is an issue for Jason Tyndall. Won't be able to be on the touchline. That is going to be a problem. Mahad, loans with obligation to buy seem to be the new way to bypass FFP. Yeah, I think that's the way, but I think Newcastle are trying to play it safe in a sense of not getting any of these issues. So I think in terms of the game, you know, one of the situations of this game is going to be how, you know, Villa maybe play through the Newcastle press. We know that Newcastle are going to squeeze high. We know that they're going to position themselves in super aggressive positions to stop you playing out from the back. That's kind of what we expect from them. You know, will they really sort of make teams struggle again? I think so. I think they're going to be a good fit side early part of the season. Wouldn't expect them to kind of go on a bit of a run. I think when the issues will start to come, in my opinion, is going to be when you know, the Champions League comes in. I think that's going to be the point where there's sort of potentially fatigue problems, potentially, you know, running in. But I do think that starting 11 is solid, really, really solid starting 11 that they've got in there. You know, be it the 4-3-3 that they play or the 4-2-3-1 with Isaac, and Callum Wilson. But I do think that the depth is the problem, I would definitely say. Of course, Tonelli comes in to add another body into midfield. But, you know, we're losing, you know, Bruno Guimaraes. They massively affected how they played last season. It really, really did. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be an interesting match. I think with Villa, let's throw Villa into the equation as well. So I think with the thing with Aston Villa in terms of how they'll sort of try and force the situation. Of course, I'll have to move this around quickly. There is definite avenues for Newcastle to really get at them when they're building. You know, it's one of those situations where they've got a real solid side, but there is, you know, places. So let's just throw these out on screen. So we got Matty Cash, Paul Torres, Martinez, and then we'll go move this around, get Diaby into the team, Kamara into central midfield. So I think that almost this game is you want the opposition to maybe have the ball. I think with what we'll see with Villa, that kind of hard-working, hard-natured side to them. And I do think you've got, you know, a good element there of pace. I think Diaby's going to be really interested in this match. When we're looking at areas that Diaby's going to target, it will be in this Dan Botman burn area, where I kind of would favour Diaby in this situation to get a run at them. to take them on. Again, you know, when you look at Dan Burns defending as a big lad, he's very, very good. But I like that kind of angle where he could attack Sven Botman directly and then potentially get himself wide and look for the cutback for Watkins or one of the midfielders joining. I think that's definitely an angle. Newcastle are going to press high out the back. I think that's going to be an interesting battle as well. As we mentioned, the build-up shape will be, you know, Konza, Mings and Torres. I think Matty Cash will be high. McGinn will be slightly inside. So it's how Newcastle kind of deal maybe with that as a threat. Again, they'll press super high with their 3 men. Their midfielders will be super high. So it's kind of like John McGinn is the free guy. Either John McGinn inside, Diaby on the outside, or Leon Bailey is kind of the outballs. So that kind of level of beating that initial Newcastle press is going to be the same thing. Thoughts on Anderson for Newcastle? He's had a great pre-season. Looking forward to seeing him. Another young player coming through the Newcastle Academy. Could be quite good. But guys, they're my thoughts on the game. I kind of think Ollie Watkins with 3 goals and an assist in his last 5 against Newcastle United will be the difference maker. But do, guys, get into the chat. Let me know what you think. The other side of it is no side in the Premier League has won more points against Aston Villa than Newcastle United. They love playing Newcastle. But do get into the chat, guys, what you think the score is going to be for this game. Is it going to be Newcastle starting off the season in good form, or will it be Aston Villa? How I kind of see this game, maybe I think Villa might grab the first goal. Newcastle will come back. I think when you're looking at the bench that Newcastle have got and what we kind of saw with, you know, when they go a bit more aggressive, when, you know, they bring on another forward and go maybe for more of a 4-2-3-1 shape with Joe Linton a slightly bit deeper. I like that with Isak as the link man. I think that'll come back. When you look at Callum Wilson, scored 11 goals in his last 12 Premier League games, a goal every 58 minutes. There is some danger there. Mahad's going 3-1 to Aston Villa. Johnny's going 2-2. Mr. Goated's going to go 4-4. Didn't say in a draw like pre-season. Yeah, I kind of like, I fancy the draw. I really do. Ahmed's going to go 2-0 Newcastle. I like that. I like that a lot, guys. Get your score predictions in for all the games today. We'll be going through them one by one. Of course, focusing on the Liverpool game, the Manchester United game. But now, we've got to talk about a new game. We've got to talk fantasy football. It's time to go through my 23-24 fantasy football side. We're going template. We're going conservative from the start. And we're going to win the lot. We're going to come number 1. I think in goal, there's a number of options you can go for. I like Onana at United. I think he's going to be great for bonus points. I like Jordan Pickford as a cheaper option. I like Johnston as a cheaper option. But we're going to go with Mark Flecken from Brentford. In terms of Brentford, they conceded 46 goals in the Premier League last season, which was only a record only bettered by the teams in the Champions League. I think you look at the David Raya being the top point-scoring goalkeeper last season. Brentford will concede shots, but they'll concede goals. There'll be some good stays there. The Statman Dave League we all talk about is a good one. Is a good league to be part of. But if you want to get involved in maybe a better league, a league where you get to face the likes of Chris Sutton, we've got a league as well. I'll bring the code up, which is J03MNP. I will bang that into the chat. If you want to play against Chris Sutton, me, Bruce Ball, get involved there. So that's the code for the Fantasy 606 League, but also we've got the Statman Dave code in the chat as well, so make sure you get involved with that as well. So yeah, Flecken in goal. We're also going to play Turner. Turner is the simple option. Turner will be first choice for Nottingham Forest, so get him in your team. He will start, and he's 4 million, so it's a good option there. Moving into defence, I think you've got to build a defence that's not only got a cheap defender. I think Issa Kabor's probably the best option from the cheap players. George Baldock's another good cheap option, but I like Kabor. He's got some good statistics. Tackles really well, top 1% of players I think in Europe for tackles in the final third, but also possessions received in that area could get high. In my defence, we're going Ben Chilwell, we're going Gabriel, we're going Estepinian, and we're going £100 million defender Josko Gvardiol. I like this defence. Gives us good rotation options. Chilwell being in there as well means we can pop in, we can pop out. I like it. Gabriel, Arsenal's run at the start of the season's good. Chilwell, of course, is probably the more offensive Chelsea player this season. When you look at the heat maps, he's higher than Reece James in pre-season. And Gvardiol's going to come into the City defence. Estepinian did damage last season, is a great option at 5 million. Into midfield, we are spending a lot of money in midfield, but across the line. And Burmo, first choice on penalties for Brentford. He will be a player that could be real good value considering Tony is out until January, considering 6.5 million, good defender in there. Got to get Sir Marcus of Rashford, that just makes sense. 9 million, brilliant value, will play number 9 for United at the start of the season at least. If not, he'll be playing wide left and he scores loads of goals wide left. Moving forward to Saka, into midfield as well. Got a great option in terms of his scoring, penalties, assisting, 25 goal involvements last season. Absolutely great statistics. Then we've got Bruno Fernandes, who I think underpriced at 8.5 million. United got a good run at the start. He'll be in the team. And Gabriel Martinelli. And that is that's the start of the team. That's what's looking good for the start of the team. I think the midfield's got good depth in it, good balance. We're also going to go with a 3-5-2 as well. Then to the forward line, we've got Haaland, Watkins, and Bama. So, of course, Haaland, you've got to have him in your team. He's captain every single week. Watkins is the best option at 8 million for me. I had him as soon as Gabriel Jesus got injured. I had him before. And then you're going to bring the West Ham forward in to balance that team in terms of value. That is the team, guys. That is what we are starting with. Get into the chat your teams, how you feel you're going to get on, and any questions you've got from a fantasy football perspective. We'll just do that right now. Let me make sure the code is the correct code. I'm pretty sure we've got the correct code, but I'll just double check. Actually, I could find it on Twitter. Let's throw that back on screen. My fantasy team. So you guys can take a little screenshot of that. Big season, though. Big season. Me, Brucey, and Chris have got a joint team this season to try and beat the FPL nerds, as we like to call them. Nerds is a very endearing thing for me to say, to be quite honest. So yeah, the code for the league is J03MNP for the Fantasy 606 League, the big one. Get in there. Gvardiol over Stones or Diaz. Yeah, I think it's a good option at 5. I think he's a brilliant player. I think as soon as Pep plays him, he's going to absolutely love him. He's going to absolutely love him. Sterling for 7 million. I wouldn't trust Chelsea early doors. I think there's better players at 7 million. I like Mitoma. I also like Eze, who are 6.5 with Mbermo, which I think is great options. Rather have Jackson over Mbermo. Jackson is definitely a good pick. Finished off the season for Villarreal very, very well. Will score goals. Linked the play brilliantly in first season, in pre-season. Got some assists. Scored some goals. Looks good. Looks really good. Mahad, is Chilwell fit? That is going to be the age-old question for the entire season. Is Ben Chilwell fit? Of course, the starting team's going to be 3-5-2. I think we'll bench Chilwell for the first week. Hope the Gvardiol's going to be fit. We're also going to be looking for any news and stuff in terms of players and getting leaks and stuff to make sure Gvardiol is entered. Invalid code entered. Please check. So double check that code. I'm pretty sure that's correct. I'll have another look before the end of the stream with that to make everything right. But yeah, get your fantasy questions in if you've got any. Let's get back into the action. Next up, we've got the Caicedo derby. Moises Caicedo has been playing around over the last 2 days. The two teams that have been bidding for him on Friday, or on Thursday, should I say, Chelsea and Liverpool. And the news was that Liverpool had agreed a fee of 111 million. Interesting after Jurgen Klopp, came out and said he would never spend 100 million on a player. He has done it. So that's an interesting one. We look at this in isolation. I think if they do get someone of the quality of Caicedo, they've done well. But the reports today is that Caicedo doesn't want to join Chelsea. Sorry, doesn't want to join Liverpool, but he wants to join Chelsea. Apparently signed a pre-contract or had a pre-contract agreement with them in May. I think this is absolutely crazy. Really, really crazy in terms of, players that sign for... I just don't get it. I really don't get why Caicedo isn't joining Liverpool. But at the same time, if he's had an agreement with Chelsea, he's got an agreement with Chelsea. One of the best young ball-playing midfielders in the world. A true destroyer, an absolute... incredible athlete, but also has the ability to play fullback as well as he did against Manchester United. He is so, so good. I really rank him very, very highly. In the Premier League, it's hard to play central midfield at his age and play central midfield very, very well. And he's someone that has done it exceptionally well at Brighton. It is a bit upsetting with, without him playing for Brighton, because we all love watching Brighton. It is lots of fun. But you're looking at his pass completion rate, second best in the Premier League amongst midfielders. 56 interceptions, the second most in the league. 50 tackles won, the fourth most in the league. For Liverpool, he would have been perfect. He really would have been perfect. But also, I am quite excited to see the midfield of Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez. Like, that is one hell of a midfield. That is a midfield that's very fluid, that's very flexible, that both players can play the playmaking role, both players can play the aggressive role, both players can play the attacking role. Like, Caicedo under Pochettino also is super exciting. Super, super exciting. So whatever the decision is with Caicedo, hopefully we'll be playing Premier League football soon. I think that's the only thing that I really want, is just to see him play again, because I think he's a wonderful talent. In terms of the match, Chelsea versus Liverpool, this game's on the first Super Sunday of the season. Chelsea in pre-season have been pretty decent. There's some stuff that I've seen of Chelsea that I've liked. There's some stuff that I've seen from Chelsea that I've not liked. But overall, I think there is a Pochettino stamp on the side. You look at the average positions versus Borussia Dortmund. Mention the two fullbacks getting high was kind of a classic Pochettino thing in the Premier League with Walker and with Danny Rose. It's a little bit more laid back in a sense of, you can see Reece James, number 54 there on the average position map. He's playing right back. So Reece James is sitting and holding a little bit more, being more of that ball player, whereas Ben Chilwell's higher. This is a reason why he's in my fantasy football team, guys. This is the big reason why he's in there, just for that ability that he's going to play higher up the pitch. And I think that's kind of a good level for it, in a sense. A real good position for Chilwell, and it complements Reece James's quality in possession. We know how much a wonderful passer he is of the football, how he can control games and so forth. You can see him so deep on the heat map, being in that kind of like deeper inside playmaking role. Into the chat, guys. Hey, Dave, if you were Caicedo, where would you go, Liverpool or Chelsea? At the moment, I'd probably say Liverpool, which is interesting. I think their midfield would be brilliant with, Trent moving inside from right back, joining Caicedo, Szoboszlai and McAllister ahead. I think that's a great midfield. But also Enzo and Caicedo is a great midfield as well. I think if he wants to compete early, I'd go Liverpool. If he wants to compete in the next 5 years, I would go Chelsea. It would be the two kind of options that I'd look at. Yeah, sorry guys. So the code is working if you do caps. So just do it in capital letters, and apparently that works for to join the Fantasy 606 League. Thanks to Sashin in the chat for working that one out. So I'll just repost that into the chat for you guys to see that and to get involved. But yeah, I think they're the two options. I think it's a really interesting side. Johnny, is Trent worth it for fantasy football? Not until they buy a defensive midfielder. That's what I would say. If they buy a DM, yes. If they don't buy a DM, no. That's kind of how I would look at it. Caicedo to Bayern? That would be pretty wild as well. That would be pretty wild. 250 million on two midfielders. What are Chelsea doing? They are spending money. Spending money really well. Welcome to Alex into the chat as well. Jordan, what's the Statman Dave league code? So it's capitals J03MNP. In the chat again, guys. In the chat. Double trouble. It's getting pretty sweaty in this office. It's quite nice in the UK today. But yeah, let's continue our chat. Liverpool in pre-season have been involved in some bangers. 4-2 Karlsruhe. 4-4 with Further Growth. Beat Leicester City 4-0. Lost to Bayern 4-3. Beat Darmstadt 3-1. They are conceding goals. This is why they are looking for that defensive midfielder. And you can see Liverpool against Bayern were playing Curtis Jones in that single pivot position. I think Curtis Jones has done really well for Liverpool, especially at the back end of the season, but playing higher in that kind of more number 8 role where Szoboszlai and McAllister are playing. I thought he did really well back into the season. Scored goals, affected the play. The Leicester game, the brace, the Tottenham game, the assist against Leeds. Thought he was really kind of growing into that role as the guy that's going to play a little higher, which, is a big shame for him that he's being used a bit deeper, because I just don't think it's his skill set. I think he's a good passer of the football, but to anchor that Liverpool midfield, you have to be aggressive. You have to be a ball winner, and it's just not what he is. So maybe they'll change it round. Maybe they'll drop McAllister into that position in the short term. It's going to be really tough. Trent's position in pre-season has been very kind of similar to what we've seen previously where he's playing inside. You can see that kind of like the inverted position there, the box midfield for Liverpool. Trent the 66 with 17, Curtis Jones. Number 20, which is Diogo Jota, playing in that position. Bobby Clark wide. So there's lots of variance and stuff that Liverpool can do within this shape, but I do think they definitely need a central midfielder. Absolutely need a central midfielder. Afternoon to Ed as well. Welcome to the chat, my good friend. Should I captain Haaland, Bruno or Saka? Captain Haaland. Don't mess about. Simple. But I think this game's going to be very much on whether, Liverpool can deal with Chelsea's pressure, but also their ability on the counter-attack. I think it's going to be a really interesting season for the likes of Mudryk and Sterling, whether they can get over the line in terms of goals. I think Mudryk on the break is going to be a real interesting one. The speed, driving through the heart of the midfield with Martinez linking. This is going to be a good game of football, I think. I probably would put it out there as maybe a draw. I think both teams have got their strengths and weaknesses. I think Liverpool direct through the middle, no defensive midfielder in there, is going to be a huge area that Chelsea target. I really do. But also, we know the quality of the front three. We know what Mohamed Salah can do in his pre-season, as you can see there. Has been pretty disgusting. We're looking at 7 assists and 2 goals. More of a playmaking Mohamed Salah. Maybe there's another iteration of Mohamed Salah in there, but expect him to, really dominate the Premier League once again from this wide right position. But I'm excited to watch Liverpool. I think they're going to grow as the season goes on. I'm also excited to see how Poch goes, but also Enzo Fernandez, literally one of my favourite players in the Premier League. I was lucky enough to see him live at Old Trafford last season when Chelsea came into town. He was brilliant. Chelsea lost 4-0, but he was brilliant. And the statistic that is absolutely fantastic with him is that Enzo Fernandez is in the top 1% of players in Europe for passes into the final third. He is going to continue to play make, such as he's done in his Chelsea career so far. It's going to be really nice to see him if he's playing with Caicedo. That is going to be a great combination. Shout out to everyone into the chat as well. Dropping down. I think it'll be a 3-3 scoreline from Anthony. Guys, it is that time. Get into the chat. Let me know your score predictions for this game. Liverpool versus Chelsea. I think this will be won and lost in that central midfield battle. I think that Liverpool not having a guaranteed defensive midfield is going to open them up. But I also think that they'll score goals. I really do. I think that Liverpool will attack. I think Chelsea will attack as well. This could be a Premier League classic. If it's allowed to evolve the way that hopefully it is. So definitely get on it. Get on the game at 4 o'clock or 4:30 on Sunday in the UK. Really good stuff. Johnny's going to go 3-2 Chelsea. Clayton's going to go 2-1 Chelsea. Thato's going to go another draw. What do you make of Jackson? So I like Jackson. You look at Jackson, he's basically one of those players that's just hit a bit of form in his career. Look at the back end of last season for Villarreal. Goals galore. 9 goals in his last 6 games and 2 assists. He's a player that I like. A lot of his goals came with him like spinning into the channels, like running into the channels. You can see in the box there that he's hitting both of the channels in the penalty area. Hits them quite well, gets shots away really well. I like his feet. I think he works hard off the ball. I think he's an underrated gem. I really do. Underrated gem. I think he'll be good for fantasy football as well. I think he will score goals in the Premier League. El Scrapio, a 2-2 draw from Ed. We've got Stephen saying Liverpool will win. Chelsea aren't settled. Siv is saying 2-1 to either side. And Dam is saying 2-0 to Liverpool. We've got Salu in the chat as well saying 3-1 Liverpool. I think it's going to be good. It's going to be a good game of football. I expect it to be a draw, though. I think both teams will kind of cancel each other out in the classic cliche way. I think there'll be goals, but I think it will cancel itself out. Let's move on to the last Premier League game we're going to be talking about today, and it is Manchester United's game, of course, in the Premier League on Monday with Wolverhampton Wanderers. United have had a good pre-season. Erik ten Hag was talking the pre-season up today, saying that they've done well there. They look a lot fitter than they were last season. But there's still question marks in this Manchester United side. Of course, Hojlund will miss the start of the season through injury. So expect Alejandro Garnacho to start. Man United starting kind of 11 will be more on the fact of maybe more of a 4-3-3, 4-1-4-1, Mason Mount and Bruno midfield. I think one of the things that we need to sort of talk about is that kind of United struggled a little bit at times against Lon at kind of getting the ball to the attackers. a lot of the times Lon pressed reasonably high. United had a lot of players higher than the ball, and that's where United came into some sort of issues in a sense of breaking down that first line of defence, breaking that midfield line to get the attackers on the ball. It was a little bit broken in the sense of what we saw. When the United played fast, when they played direct, they looked very, very good. And one of the things that Erik ten Hag wants to do this season is turn Man United into the best transitional team in Europe. When you consider the pace of Garnacho, Rashford, Antony, Hojlund, Jadon Sancho, there is a humongous level of pace in there, counter-attacking threat, and the ability to break behind teams. The issue I have with United is when they don't play fast, when they don't drop it in Casemiro around the outside to Antony, back into Bruno, switch out, cross, goal. Like, that is the speed United could play at this season. It's when it's sort of a little bit more settled and United are playing. I think at times Casemiro doesn't hold on to the ball well enough. I think he is quite direct in certain moments. And that's something I think needs to be fixed in a sense of, one of the fullbacks being more of a holding midfielder and one of them being more of a defender. And that being fixed is what I'd like to see. I'd probably like to see Shaw as the back three, Diogo Dalot joining Casemiro in that central midfield area to get on the ball. I think the advantage that Dalot's got over Wan-Bissaka is he's more of that passer, more of that player. I think when he's played in that area, especially when he was inverted left back inside, looked really, really good. And I don't think that's, that could be an option as well in certain games of having Wan-Bissaka playing right back and Diogo Dalot playing left back and coming inside. I think he's probably the best midfield defender that we've got. So why not play him in the higher zone more often? I think at times United struggled with their build-up and struggled with how they were playing to kind of get through to this middle part of the pitch. This was the problem. Not enough passes to break lines against Lyon. But then when they did open the game up, they looked very, very good. Expect Alejandro Garnacho to play a big role at the start of United's season. I think his ability 1v1 and also to make good decisions. I loved his assist against Lyon. Was very, very mature in the game in terms of getting his head up and playing to really good effect. That'll be the same against Wolves. This Wolves team is going to be really unknown. Of course, Gary O'Neill was Bournemouth manager last season. They stayed in the Premier League. In terms of their kind of like tactical setup last season, it was kind of more a 4-2-3-1 in most games, but they also played a back three against back three sides such as Spurs, but more of kind of 4-2-3-1, 4-1-4-1, looking to play more on the counter-attack. Fulham at home dominated possession. They created a lot of expected goals on the break. So that's the danger of this Fulham side. That will be the danger of this Wolves side, is they'll be good on the counter-attack. You're thinking Pedro Neto is a very good player on the counter-attack that could open Manchester United up, but they will drop 4-1-4-1, play on the break. You're also looking at players like Guedes can play in a really good open game. You're looking at Mateus Nunes, who's also really good with open space. So that's what I'd worry about. United need to be good with their build-up and not treat the ball a little bit better, respect the ball. And I think also maybe in this match, having it being a little bit more slow in terms of the possession phase, of having either Bruno, which you would prefer, to drop back and get on the ball in deep areas, or Mason Mount dropping back and getting on the ball. Either of them, I want to see one of them getting into this left central midfield position a lot more to help United build better with the 6 players plus goalkeeper, and then get into the final third. I think it's fine when you're in the final third, having the 3 number 10s, as we see many teams do. But I think in that build-up structure and build-up phase in the mid-third, having one of them drop deep, either Bruno or Mason Mount. Mason Mount did it a lot more in pre-season when Kobe Mainoo was playing and looked very, very good. I was kind of surprised to see him in the higher position in that first game the last game in pre-season. More of that traditional 4-3-3 look. Aiden in the chat, good to have you back, Dave. Thank you. I had a great summer. Thank you very much. Hey Dave, do you think Bruno, Mount and Casemiro midfield works, especially in the big games? I think in the big games, having someone like an Amrabat step in and maybe putting Mason Mount into a higher position, wide left would be a good option. Wide left or wide right, opening up space for the fullback. I think that would give United a lot more protection and rotation. But I think Mount could grow into that role, I really do. I think we've got to judge Mount at the end of the season. He's already getting pelters from people. But I do think he's a fantastic ball player. He's a good player in the final third. In terms of chance conversion, it's around 15% in the penalty area. He's a very good finisher in the penalty area. His chance conversion outside is 9%, which is also quite good from long shots. That'll give United another element when getting into the final third. So that's what I'd kind of look at. I think United still are building their squad. They're still evolving their squad. But having someone like Mason Mount in there, the quality of a footballer is definitely there. It's just a bit of time to get adjusted to Erik ten Hag's methodology and what he wants to do. Tyrion in the chat. Tyrion in the chat. A better signing, Pavard or Todibo? I'd probably go Todibo because I am Youth FC. I like to get the young players in. But Pavard's got great quality and possession. We'll do a video on Monday about those, or Monday or Tuesday about those two, so stay tuned to that. Why can't we sign Thuram from Nice, Manu Kone, alongside Amrabat? We could do if we had the cash. I think the cash is the problem. I'm not a massive fan of Thuram at all. I like Manu Kone, Thuram not so. That Amrabat would be really good. I think Amrabat as a half-back in this team would be absolutely perfect. Ed, personally, I don't like Mount as a goal scorer creator. If anything, I'd see him more of a Gini Wijnaldum prime Klopp. I think he's definitely kind of got a little bit more on the ball, I'd say, from a playmaking perspective than a Wijnaldum. Not saying Wijnaldum was a bad ball player, but a great player. I think the energy that Mount's shown in the counter press has been very, very good off the ball, which has been nice. So in terms of the game, Man United versus Wolves, I think it's going to be around how United can utilise their attacking play, and I think in the final third, it's kind of vitally important. Getting to the final third with good, possession play, and then having the patience. We see United a lot in these types of positions where they're, on the opponent's halfway line. They're in there. What we need to see is when United lose the ball, the counter press, super, super aggressive. That's what we need to see. Because Wolves, if they can get the ball to the wide players, as we mentioned before, the likes of Pedro Neto, that will be back for his first proper season in a few years now, has that ability to break through the lines. And we know United can be vulnerable in these moments. So the counter press is going to be key in the final third, but also in terms of the fluidity of breaking down a Gary O'Neil side. They will sit in two banks of four, so you can overload their backline with 5 players. We're talking centre forward, attacking midfielder, central midfielder, as United will have, Mount, Bruno, Rashford. I think it's really important to, utilise the switch of play, from Diogo Dalot, from Casemiro, getting the other winger inside, and vice versa. What I like about United, is this right-sided triangle, the Portuguese triangle, as I like to call it. On the right side with Bruno, Anthony, Dalot. Of course, I'd prefer Mount out there, but I also like this. What I like about that is there's a few times in pre-season where we saw ball retained wide right, dropped to Varane, dropped inside, and then we saw Bruno running off the ball, Martinez over the top. We've seen that a few times last season as well. So it's something I like. I like that variation that we've got. And having someone like Gary O'Neil's Wolverhampton Wanderers, I expect they'll play 4-4-1-1. Having, players making the move from deep to running behind the defence with. Oh. Oh, I think we're back. Apologies, guys. Not sure what happened there. We are back, guys. We are back. But yeah, so we need more chance creation from Anthony. I think he needs to be a little bit more direct in the final third is what I'd like to see. I think he had a good start to the season, but I do think there needs to be more output from Anthony. I know the quality of the guy. I know that the guy is good enough, but we need to see more directness in the final third, more facing up that fullback and running at him. A team like Wolves that will try and double up on Anthony with the fullback and the winger. Mateus Nunes, let's say, if he's playing wide left and the fullback ain't Nuri, that ball inside to Bruno is on every day of the week, or the ball to Marcus Rashford is on. I really believe that. Guys, get into the chat. Your score predictions for this game. Manchester United versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. Monday Night Football is back. Get into the comments below, guys. Get into the comments. Get your score predictions in and let me know how this one is going to go. We've already agreed with Amrabat, like Caicedo have done with Chelsea. Dam is going to go 3-1 Manchester United. Mulder is going to go 2-0. Thriller's going to go 3-1. HBE is going to go 1-0. Maka 4-0. Taron Lannister's going to go 4-0. Mahad 3-0. LJ 3-0. Shiv's going to go 2-0 United. Ed's going to go 2-1. Derek with a 3-0 Man United. Jim Dam is going to go 4-1. The 93 Raymond's going to go 2-0. Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. LJ with the 3-0 again. Anthony's going to go 4-0 Man United. Aman's going to go 6-0. HBE, it's Wolves, lads. Always going to be 1-0. Well, so we've got Stephen with a 4-0, Din with a 7-0, Mingle with a 2-0, Messiah with a 4-1, Dev with a 3-1, and Hamza with a 2-0. I would love 4-0, but who's going to play up top? I think it's going to be Marcus Rashford through the middle at the start of the season, guys. And I think we'll see Jadon Sancho as well off the bench. I think we'll probably see that Garnacho-Sancho swap, Rashford wide left, Sancho in that inside area, which I think could be good for this game. I think what Sancho's got, as we've already previously spoke about, is that real close controllability in these number 10 areas that can open up a option for what someone to spin in behind, or open up an option for him to get a shot away, or him slide a winger in. I really believe that he's going to be useful this season for Manchester United. Wide left, wide right, number 9, false 9. It's going to be decent. But guys, it's probably going to be that for today. Fantasy football again. The code is in the chat if you want to go and check that out. It is J03MNP. There's my fantasy team. If you want to get involved with the league, jump in, get inside with that. Stephen, we need to make more signings. I agree with that. Sancho, false 9, would be better ball retention in the final third. I agree with that with Shiv. Why Onana in the middle from username? Because that is where he plays. Mason Mount, first goal from Mingle. Mahad's banging the code as well because he's an absolute legend. GG's, we will be back Monday with some more great content. Premier League review will be then. We've got another video going out today. Manchester United tactical setup for the new season. GG's in the chat. There is my bench. Ben Chilwell, Turner, Cabot, and Mbama. And that's it, guys. Much love. I enjoyed it. I'm back.